Let's talk about how to do matrix multiplication in general and then also in R. So let's say that we have two matrices, A and B, and we want to compute the matrix product, which we would denote as AB like this. So we don't have to have a multiplication sign or something like that. We would just put them next to each other like this, and this indicates that we are multiplying them together. Well, that matrix product is only going to be defined if the number of columns in A matches the number of rows in B. And so the way that we go about doing the operations, if you don't have that property, then you can't actually do the matrix multiplication. So because of that, we're going to assume that A is an M by N matrix and B is an N by P matrix. So the number of rows of A and the number of columns of B, they don't have to match, so we're allowing them to be different. But the number of columns of A and the number of rows of B do have to be the same, which is why we have an N in both one of those locations. And here is the formula for computing the matrix product A times B. If you multiply an M by N matrix by an N by P matrix, you're going to end up with an M by P matrix, the number of rows of the matrix on the left and the number of columns of the matrix on the right. And this is the process that you would go about to do it, but really I think it's easier to explain visually. And so that's what we're going to focus on. So essentially, when you're multiplying two matrices together, you take each row of the matrix on the left, and then you sort of rotate it and then multiply it vertically by each of the elements in the columns of the matrix on the right. And so you kind of line up the elements here. And so if we wanted to multiply this row right here, with this column right here, we're going to line up 1, 1 with 2, 2, and 3, 3. And what we're going to do here is we multiply 1 times 1, and then we add to that 2 times 2, and then we add to that 3 times 3. And so that's what we get in this representation of the product here, 1 times 1 plus 2 times 2 plus 3 times 3. To get the product in the first row of the product and the second column of the product, we take these elements of A and we multiply them by this column of B. So we're going to get 1 times 4 plus 2 times 5 plus 3 times 6, just like we have right here. And then once we get to the second row, we can multiply that by the first column of the matrix on the right. And we get 4 times 1, 5 times 2, 6 times 3. And then the last thing that we can multiply here is the second row of A with the second column of B. And we get 4 times 4 plus 5 times 5 plus 6 times 6, which is what we have in this representation of the matrix product here. And so if we compute those sums, we get 14, 32, 32, and 77. That's our 2 by 2 matrix that we end up with. And you can generalize that to more rows and more columns as needed. So that's how we do matrix products in general. That's kind of the definition. That's the process for going through for computing matrix multiplication. But how would we actually do matrix multiplication in R? So to do matrix multiplication in R, you want to use the multiplication operator here, but it's the way that we represent that for matrix multiplication is %, star, %. This is not like the scalar multiplication that we did before, but we could simply use the star symbol. We have to use %, star, % in order to do the matrix multiplication. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to take these exact same matrices and we're going to perform the matrix multiplication in R. So we've already actually defined A, and so you can see that we have this 2 by 3 matrix with 1, 2, 3 in the first row and 4, 5, 6 in the second row. And then now we need to get our second matrix over here, which is 1, 2, 3 in the first column, 4, 5, 6 in the second column. There's multiple ways that we can define that, but here's one approach here. So I use the matrix function, I give it the vector 1 through 6, I specify 3 rows and 2 columns, and because that function fills in the columns one by one, we get the matrix that we desired over here. And so now we want to multiply A times B, so I have A, %, star, %B, and when I do that and multiply it out, I get the exact same matrix that we had manually computed up above. And so that's how you go about doing matrix multiplication in R.